This happened almost 8 years ago. I was 34, working as a mechanic and guiding fishing trips on Lake X. After my breakup, I often went out on the water to escape. I didn't think I was a pro, but I knew the area. The locals loved to talk about fishing, but they also mentioned fishermen disappearing. I never paid much attention until that one evening. I was alone on the lake as the sun set. The water looked calm, almost too calm. I was packing up when I spotted something half buried on the shore. An old, tattered fishing rod. I felt drawn to it, like it was calling me. I picked it up, feeling the rough handle in my hand. After I cast my line, the water shimmered strangely. A chill ran down my spine. Then I heard a voice. It whispered my name. I froze. I thought it was just the wind, but it felt too real. I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. I had every reason to leave, but I stayed. Over the next few days, strange things happened. The fish were biting hard, almost frantic. I caught more than I had in years. At first, I thought it was sheer luck, but then I noticed shadows moving on the water, flickering just out of view. I felt my heart race as I kept my eyes trained on the surface. One day at the diner, I overheard the locals talking. They mentioned a fisherman who vanished after making a deal with the lake. He had caught a huge fish, then just disappeared. The locals seemed scared. The knot in my stomach tightened as I remembered the whispers. I tried to focus on fishing, but every cast felt heavy. That voice lingered in my mind. Stories felt different now. I found myself back at the shoreline one night, looking for answers. I could hear the gentle lapping of the water. My heart raced again. It felt alive. Suddenly, the water rippled violently. I stumbled back in fear, but I had to know. I stared into the depths and thought I saw a figure moving beneath the surface. It vanished quickly, leaving me feeling watched. I looked around, anxious. I didn't know what to do. Was this connected to the vanished fisherman? The line between reality and myth felt thin. I desperately wanted answers, but I feared finding them. Then I heard the voice again, clearer this time. Come back. My heart raced and I felt cold. I wanted to leave, but the air grew heavy. It felt like someone or something was waiting for me. I took a step back, but my feet felt glued to the ground. The darkness around me deepened. The calm lake felt menacing. I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had spoken to me wanted something more. I wanted to scream, but no sound escaped my lips. I felt trapped. All the stories suddenly felt too real. I dropped the rod, but the darkness pulled me in. I didn't know if I would escape. I woke up the next morning, sweat dripping from my brow. I was in my bed, yet the vividness of the nightmare still clung to me like a damp blanket. The whispers were gone, but a sinking feeling lodged itself in my stomach. I couldn't shake the idea that whatever happened by the lake wasn't over. I had to know more. As I drove into town, I passed familiar landmarks: the diner, the bait shop, and the old dock. Each place felt steeped in the stories I had ignored. I parked outside the diner and stepped in, seeking comfort in a cup of coffee. The air was thick with conversations, but I barely heard the chatter. My mind was consumed with questions. "Back again?" the waitress, Sue, said with a knowing smile. "You're lucky to catch anything in this weather." I forced a smile in return, but I could see the fear in her eyes. Had she heard the same whispers? "I heard about that fisherman who vanished," I said, trying to sound casual. "What do you know? What was his name?" Her smile faded. "It was Charlie Graham. Good guy. Fished this lake his whole life. One day, he caught the biggest fish anyone had ever seen. Then, he just disappeared. It was like the lake took him." I leaned in closer. "But what happened? Did anyone ever find him?" She shook her head. "No body. Just stories. Some say he made a deal. You reach the bottom of the lake, you get power. But there's always a price. Nobody comes back after they go that deep. I felt my heart pound. Why didn't anyone warn him? There's a reason people don't talk about it. Fear. No one wants to provoke whatever is down there. Just like you shouldn't provoke it neither. Her gaze turned cold, like the chilly morning air. My coffee sat untouched. I needed to decide. Investigate further or walk away. But the thought of leaving things unresolved nagged at me. I couldn't let it go. Outside, the lake sparkled in the sunlight, almost taunting me. I drove to the old dock, my stomach twisting with each passing moment. I grabbed my fishing gear, my hands shaking as I assembled the rod. The water looked inviting, but also malevolent. I remembered Sue's warning, but felt a stubborn fire within me. I stepped out onto the dock. The air felt heavy, like it was reminding me of my decision. I cast my line, watching the lure dance in the water. For a moment, everything felt still. But then, it happened. The surface rippled, and the shadows reappeared. They were deeper this time, pulling at the edges of my vision. I strained to see, heart racing. Suddenly, something broke the surface. A huge, shimmering fish that glinted like silver in the sunlight. It was enormous, far bigger than anything I had ever caught. A voice echoed in my mind, soft and seductive. "Catch me." I hesitated, wonder and dread fighting in my chest. I could feel it. The lake was alive. I knew I should turn back, but my hand tightened around the rod. Then, everything went dark. The sky seemed to vanish, and with it, my choice. I woke up on the dock, water dripping from my clothes. Panic surged as I tried to recall what happened. The lake loomed around me, much too still and quiet. The shimmering fish was gone, but I felt its presence lingering in the depths. My heart raced as fear gripped me. I scrambled to my feet, looking around for any sign of life. The air was tinged with a strange energy, like static before a storm. I could hear the distant chirp of insects, but that was it. No boats, no other fishermen, just me and the lake. As I took a step back, the water shimmered again, rippling gently, teasing me. I shook my head, trying to piece together the moments before I lost consciousness. Charlie's name flashed in my mind, the fisherman who had vanished. Had I unknowingly stirred something? I backed away slowly, wary of the dock collapsing beneath my feet. My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me from my thoughts. I checked the screen. A text from my friend Jake. "Where are you? Everyone's worried. You were supposed to help me with the big tournament." I glanced back at the lake, unsure of what to do. I was supposed to be fishing, not grappling with shadows and whispers. Texting back felt pointless right now. What could I even say? Sorry, I'm dealing with a mysterious lake spirit? I turned my attention to the shoreline, searching for a way back to safety. But my eyes caught something glinting in the shallow water just off the dock. Curiosity pulled me in as I cautiously stepped closer. With each footfall, the glint sharpened into focus. Something shiny was half buried in the mud. I knelt down, reaching for it. It was a fishing lure, one I recognized from the stories Sue told. The design was dated, but I'd seen photos of it. Supposedly, it belonged to Charlie. My hands shook as I turned it over, noting the wear and age. It was like a piece of him was still here, waiting. Suddenly, the atmosphere changed. A heavy silence enveloped me. I could feel eyes watching my every move, and the unease wrapped around me tighter. An echo of a voice sounded in my ears. "Return what was taken." I jerked back, dropping the lure into the water. The moment it touched the surface, the lake erupted. Water sprayed up as if it were angry. My heart pounded as waves crashed against the dock. I had to leave, now. I sprinted for my car, adrenaline coursing through me. I didn't look back as I reached the vehicle, slamming the door behind me. Panic sliced through my thoughts. What had I awakened? Before
I could catch my breath, another message from Jake came through. "Seriously, man? Are you okay? They found something in the water." I grabbed my phone, fingers trembling as I typed back, "What do you mean?" "Divers found a body. They're saying it's been there for years." A chill crept down my spine. I wasn't just dealing with whispers anymore. I was in deeper than I ever realized. And whatever was lurking in the lake, it hadn't finished with me yet. I slammed my phone onto the passenger seat, feeling a mix of dread and disbelief. "What the hell?" I whispered, clutching the steering wheel. "A body? Charlie's body? It couldn't be." My mind raced. I thought about the lure and the voice telling me to return something. Was this all connected? I turned the keys in the ignition, and the engine roared to life. I needed to get out of here. Beyond the lake, the forest was just a dark line against the sky, and I reluctantly headed toward town, keeping my eyes on the road. It felt as if the trees were closing in, and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. As I drove, Jake's message replayed in my head. Divers had found a body. What else were they keeping from everyone? The tournament was less than a week away. What would this mean for us? I parked in front of the local diner, the neon sign buzzing in the dimness. The familiar smell of fried food wafted through the door as I entered, but the comfort of the diner's atmosphere felt distant. "Hey, you okay?" Jake asked, sliding into a booth across from me. His face carried a hint of concern. I wanted to tell him everything, about the lure, about the voice, but I was terrified of sounding insane. "Did they say anything else about the body?" I asked instead, trying to keep my voice even. "The place is crawling with cops. They're doing a full investigation," he said, lowering his voice. "But rumors are flying. Some say it's been there for years. Others think it's tied to Charlie. No way to tell without an ID." I nodded, gnawing on my lip. What if he left something behind? Like, what if he made some kind of deal? Jake leaned forward, eyes widening. Like a pact with the lake? Man, I thought I was the only one who believed the legends. Sue used to talk about it. What was that story? Something about fishing for souls? I shuddered. She said the lake holds secrets. People who vanished, never found. What if Charlie was one of them? A flicker of movement caught my eye through the diner window. I squinted, trying to make sense of it. It was a blur at first, but as I focused, I saw a figure standing at the edge of the lake. Dark hair, unmistakable silhouette. It was Charlie, just as I remembered from old photos. "Do you see that?" I blurted.
"At the lake!" Jake followed my gaze, but there was nothing there. Only the water, still as ever. "What are you talking about? There's nobody!" My heart dropped. I looked back at the spot, trying to calm my racing mind. Maybe it was just my imagination. Maybe I was losing it. But my eyes betrayed me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Let's get out of here," I muttered, suddenly restless. "We need to go down to the lake." Jake frowned, skepticism etched across his face. "You sure, man? They've got it cordoned off now." "I don't care," I insisted, urgency fueling my words. "I need to know what's happening." As we stepped outside, the chill in the air prickled my skin. The sky above was thick with clouds, and I could feel the weight of the storm coming. As we approached my car, I saw something glistening against the asphalt. A familiar lure lay there, just like the one I found by the dock, yet somehow different. A new message, a new clue. Heart racing, I picked it up, my fingers trembling. That's when I saw it. A name carved into the metal. Charlie. Suddenly, the wind howled, and I could almost hear the whispers again. Turning, I caught a glimpse of movement down by the water, a fleeting shadow. My stomach dropped. I wasn't ready for this. The lake stretched out before us, dark and ominous. I gripped the lure tightly in my hand, still reeling from its unsettling message. Jake stayed a few steps behind, his eyes darting nervously toward the police tape that cordoned off the area. "Come on, we can't just stand here," I urged, stepping toward the water's edge. "Dude," Jake hissed, glancing around, "we're gonna get caught. The cops are all over." "Forget the cops. You saw something too. We can't ignore this." I didn't wait for Jake to argue further. I edged closer, squinting into the murky depths, hoping that whatever I saw earlier would reappear. But the lake was eerily still. The wind picked up again, sending shivers down my spine. I could feel an energy pulsating from the water, almost like a heartbeat, steady and relentless. Then I noticed something. Traces of footprints leading into the brush nearby, almost as if someone had rushed out of the woods and straight into the lake. "Jake," I called, pointing, "look at that. Do you think anyone else has been here?" "Maybe," he said reluctantly, joining me, "but we should really go." Ignoring his protests, I crouched down to get a better look. The wet earth was dark, almost black, but I could see the outlines of more familiar shapes, the edges of some fishing gear half buried in mud. "This is where—" My voice faltered as realization dawned on me. "Where Charlie used to fish. He always said he had a lucky spot." Jake knelt beside me, examining the gear. "So what? You think it's a sign?" "I don't know," I admitted, but instinctively, I felt drawn to the patch of ground. I brushed away some of the mud, revealing a small wooden box, weathered and barely held together. It was covered in grime, but something about it felt charged, important. "Should we open it?" Jake asked, glancing sideways, his expression a mix of curiosity and fear. "If it's linked to Charlie, we need to know." I felt a surge of determination coursing through me. I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers lay just beneath the surface. With trembling hands, I pried the box open. Inside was an assortment of objects: old fishing lures, a tarnished silver key, and a note folded neatly. I unfolded the note, my heart racing as I read the hastily scrawled words. "To the one who understands the depth, return what was taken, or it shall claim another." "What the hell does that mean?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible. "I don't know," I said, my mind racing, "but it feels like a warning." As I processed the note, I heard something, a low, resonant hum rising from the lake. Instinctively, I turned my gaze back to the water. The shadows danced more violently now, as if something beneath the surface was stirring. Then I saw it, an outline shifting beneath the waves, something dark and menacing rising from the depths. My heart stopped. "We need to go, now!" Jake shouted, grabbing my arm. But my feet felt rooted to the ground. There was an undeniable pull, a connection to the water I couldn't ignore. The hum intensified, and with a rush of fear, I realized something was demanding my attention. "Wait!" I yelled against the wind. "I have to—" Before I could finish my thought, everything shifted. The world blurred, and just like that, the lake swallowed the light, leaving me in suffocating darkness. I gasped, the air thick and heavy. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum, and a cold sweat broke out across my skin. I couldn't see anything, but I could feel the water surrounding me, the chill creeping closer. What was happening? I twisted, trying to feel my way out, but my limbs felt sluggish, my thoughts clouded. Then I heard a whisper, faint but sharp, slicing through the silence. "Return what was taken." "Charlie?" I called out, though I wasn't sure he could hear me. "Is that you?" A flicker of light appeared, like a beacon, piercing through the darkness. I squinted and began to swim toward it, moving as if wading through molasses. The light grew brighter, and shapes began to emerge around me. Familiar objects, fishing gear, some old bait, like remnants of memories long forgotten. I finally broke the surface. The air hit my face like a cold slap, and I gasped, filling my lungs with sweet oxygen. The lake stretched out again, but now everything felt different. It wasn't just dark and ominous. It felt alive, as if it were watching me, weighing my intentions. I pulled myself back onto the embankment, drenched and trembling. Jake was there, wide-eyed and pale, but I couldn't focus on him. My mind was racing back to the box and the note. "Did you see that?" I asked breathlessly. Jake nodded, still processing. "You just disappeared. I thought you were gone." I held the box tightly in my hands. "It's not just about Charlie. There's something more. That whisper, it felt like a warning. We need to figure this out." Jake looked at the water uneasily, and I could tell he wanted nothing more than to leave. What if the cops find us? Or what if whatever that was comes back? I hesitated. He was right. The lake felt menacing, even now. But what if we're ignoring something important? A thrill of adrenaline surged through me, something that could explain why Charlie disappeared. "Okay, so what's the plan? We just dive back in?" Jake asked, half joking, but I saw the fear lurking in his eyes. "No," I said firmly, shaking my head. "We need to learn about the deal, the return. There has to be a reason why Charlie came here. We need to talk to his family, or anyone who might know." Jake sighed. "I guess we can ask around tomorrow." I started to feel a sense of urgency bubbling up inside me. Tonight, we can't waste time. We need to find answers. The reflection of the moon shimmered on the water's surface, almost taunting me. I glanced back down at the box. The silver key glinted dully, promising access to something I didn't fully understand. But a chill ran through me. What if I wasn't ready for what lay beneath the surface? As we turned away from the lake, shadows shifted in the trees behind us. I caught a glimpse of movement, a dark figure, and my skin prickled with cold dread. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Jake turned slowly, eyes wide. "See what?" That was when I heard it again, the hum, low and resonant, echoing off the trees. The lake wasn't finished with us yet. I felt my heart race as the hum grew louder, curling around us like a cold breeze. It wasn't just an echo. It felt alive, almost sentient. I glanced at Jake, whose face was pale and drawn, and I knew we needed to move. "Let's get out of here," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. I turned to leave the embankment, dragging Jake with me, but the sound stopped us cold. It faded into silence, leaving a heavy void that made my skin crawl. "Did it stop?" he asked, glancing back at the water. I nodded, but unease clung to me. "For now," I replied, "but we need to go. I can't shake the feeling that it's not over." We hurried toward the path that led back to the road, the trees whispering around us. Their branches shifted in the wind, casting eerie shadows that danced in our peripheral vision. With every step, my thoughts flickered back to the box. "Do you think the deal was real?" Jake asked, breaking the tense silence. "Like, what if someone really did take Charlie?" I couldn't answer. The pulsing hum still echoed in my mind. All I could think about were the pieces of the note, return what was taken. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Once we reached Jake's car, I fumbled with the keys, my hands shaking. "Where do we even start?" I asked, more to myself than to him. "The library?" he suggested, hesitantly. "Maybe there's something in the records about the lake, or even locals who might know something." I nodded, the idea solidifying in my mind. "Yes, let's go now, before it gets any later." We climbed into the car, and I drove with urgency, the engine humming against the silence that wrapped around us like a shroud. The library was in town, and it felt strangely welcoming after the lake. The soft glow of the lights inside was comforting, but it didn't last long. As we entered, the musty smell of old books engulfed us. "Let's split up," I suggested. "I'll check the local history section while you look for anything on disappearances." Jake agreed and found his way to the far side of the building. I shoved my hands in my pockets, feeling the weight of the box against my thigh. I wandered through rows of books, scanning the titles, but they felt lifeless compared to what was brewing in my mind. After some time, I found a dusty book detailing the histories of the lake. I flipped through the pages, my heart sinking with every mention of tragic events. It was a string of drownings and disappearances, each sounding eerier than the last. Then I stumbled upon a passage that made my breath catch. Local legend has it that the lake was once the resting place for a fisherman who made a terrible deal. Before I could read further, a sudden crash echoed through the library, causing me to jump. My instincts screamed trouble. I dashed toward the sound, fear pulsing in my veins. That was when I saw it. A dark figure needed to be illuminated. The air turned icy, and the books shifted on their shelves like a living thing. "Jake!" I shouted, but my voice felt small. I stepped into the aisle and froze. Someone was in the library with us. I squinted into the shadows, my heart pounding. The figure stood still, almost obscured by a row of books. My mind raced. Had we stumbled into something we weren't meant to see? I took a cautious step forward, trying to make out the details, but the moment I moved, the figure shifted too. "Jake!" I yelled again, my voice steadying as I took a few more steps. "Where are you?" No answer. Panic set in. I didn't want to leave him, but I also
felt the weight of this stranger lurking. The air around me felt dense, charged with something unnameable. The shadows birthed a shape, a tall man, draped in a coat that seemed too large. "Who are you?" I demanded, the words coming out sharper than I intended. The figure remained silent, watching me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. I glanced at the nearest exit, weighing my options. I could dash for the door, but what if Jake was still looking for answers? What if he was in danger? "Stop," the figure finally spoke, his voice low and gravelly. "You shouldn't be here. You have to leave." I hesitated. "Where's Jake?" "Doesn't matter," he said, taking a step toward me. "The waters are calling for you." I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. The hum from the lake surged back into my mind like a thundercloud. "What do you know about the lake?" I pressed, my voice tinged with desperation. "It's not just a lake, it's a prison," he replied, "and it knows what you've taken." I blinked, processing his words. The box in my pocket felt hot against my leg. "I don't understand." "Then you will soon." He glanced over my shoulder, his eyes widening with alarm. "Get out, now!" Suddenly I heard a loud thud from behind me, followed by the unmistakable sound of books crashing to the floor. My heart raced again. It was Jake. "Jake!" I turned to see him running toward me, his face flushed with fear. "What's going on?" "Leave!" the man shouted, stepping further into the aisle, blocking our way. "Get back!" I yelled, putting myself between Jake and the stranger. "We can't just leave, not yet." "Not everyone can see the truth," the man said, his voice growing urgent, though he didn't move closer. "Some things are meant to be buried. You aren't safe here." The lights flickered, plunging us into shadows. My breath quickened. I glanced at Jake, whose confusion mirrored my own. Then everything went dark. I felt a pull, a sensation like being dragged into a void, as if the very air was being sucked away. We stumbled into a wall, my mind racing with panic, but just as suddenly, the darkness lifted. We stood in the library, but everything felt off. The aisles were empty. The man was gone. "Did you see that?" Jake gasped, looking around wildly. "Yes, but what did he mean about the lake?" I replied, swallowing hard. Then I noticed something on the floor where the figure had stood. A small, weathered object lay there, a pendant shaped like a fish. I picked it up, feeling its cold weight in my hand. "Jake, I think we've just scratched the surface." And the deeper we went, the more I felt the hum calling us back to the lake. As I held the pendant in my hand, a shiver ran down my spine. "This is creepy," Jake said, glancing around as if the walls themselves were eavesdropping. "Yeah, it is. but we need to figure out what it means. I could feel my heart racing again, but this time it was mixed with determination. Whatever the stranger had meant, he was right. Something was off, and we couldn't ignore it. We stepped cautiously through the aisles, the echoes of our footsteps muffled against the dusty floor. The library felt different now, like a hollow shell of what it should be. "Where did the guy go?" Jake muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know." My eyes swept the area, searching for any sign of the tall figure. The fear was still there, but it was morphing into a different kind of urgency, like a puzzle that was begging to be solved. "But we need answers, and that pendant might help." Jake nodded, but his gaze darted nervously. "We should get back to the lake. You felt that pull earlier. Maybe it has something to do with what we found." I bit my lip, torn between dread and curiosity. What if it's dangerous? What if we're not supposed to be messing with this stuff? "I know," he said, a determined look on his face. "But it's calling us. We have to see what it wants. Besides, we're already in this deep." Reluctantly, I agreed. There was no way we could walk away from the mystery, no matter how unsettling it felt. I pocketed the pendant, feeling its sharp edges against my palm. As we approached the library's exit, I caught sight of a reflection in the glass door, a distorted image that sent a chill through my spine. I glanced back, but nothing was there. "Did you see that?" I asked Jake. He stopped and turned. "See what?" "Never mind. Let's just go." Outside, the air felt charged, vibrating like the hum I had felt before. "Why do I have this weird feeling, like we're being watched?" I said as we walked toward the lake. "Because we probably are." Jake's voice was heavy with unasked questions. The path to the lake knotted my stomach. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the surface. "Do you really think whatever that guy was talking about is in the water?" I asked, even though deep down I already knew the answer. "I think we'll find out soon enough." Jake glanced back at me, his eyes intense. And then we were there, standing at the edge of the water, the pendant tugging at my thoughts like a raw nerve. "This is where it all started," I whispered. Before I could dwell on it further, the wind kicked up, sending ripples across the surface. With each wave, the hum grew louder, deeper. It was almost a call, a beckoning that thrummed through my bones. "Here goes nothing," Jake murmured. But before either of us could take another step, a figure appeared at the water's edge, a reflection of the man from the library, eyes dark and knowing. "Get away!" shouted, but my voice echoed in vain as the figure beckoned us closer, drawn by the whispering depths. Panic washed over me like a flood. This was no longer a quest for answers. It felt like a trap, and I wasn't sure we could escape it. The figure stood, unmoving, their presence a chilling barrier between us and the lake. As I felt the hum resonating within my chest, memories of my earlier encounters flooded my mind. Charlie, the lure, the whispers. It was all connected, pulling tighter like a noose around my thoughts. I glanced at Jake, who appeared frozen, caught between fear and fascination. "Jake, we have to leave." My voice was higher than I intended, cutting through the growing tension. But as I turned to tug in his sleeve, he stayed rooted to the spot, spellbound. "Can't you hear them?" he murmured, eyes glazed. "They're calling us. This is what we've been searching for." "There's nothing here for us," I shouted, desperate to break through to him. "Those whispers, they're not friendly." The figure at the water's edge tilted its head, a motion that sent shards of ice down my spine. It felt malevolent, dangerous, almost alive. I could sense the anger and sadness entwined in that presence, the warning that was shouted through legends, now manifest. But Jake seemed to find a strange comfort in it, as if he were being welcomed by an old friend. "Come closer," the figure beckoned, its voice a gravelly echo of the whisper I had heard before. "You understand the depth of the lake. It wants you." Before I could argue or reach for him, the surface of the water erupted into chaos. Waves crashed violently, and the shadows stirred, shapes forming beneath the murky depths, darting back and forth as if agitated. It was like the lake had come alive, convulsing with energy. "Get back!" I pulled at Jake's arm harder, trying to shake him from whatever trance was clutching him. He blinked rapidly, finally focusing on me. I'm sorry, I don't know what I was thinking." The moment broke whatever spell had bound him, and I could see the fear flashing in his eyes. What do we do? A new rumble echoed beneath the water, louder than before, making the ground tremble slightly beneath our feet. I raised the pendant, the object burning like a brand in my palm. "We need to return this. I think it's what the voice wants." Jake's eyes widened with doubt as he looked between the water and the pendant. "Are you sure? What if it's a mistake?" "It's worth a shot," I insisted, even as threads of doubt clawed at my resolve. "If it calms whatever is down there, we have to try." With a deep breath, I approached the water's edge. The figure remained still, its presence palpable and demanding. I felt the pendant pulse against my skin, almost vibrating with power. Stepping closer to the rippling surface, I lifted the pendant high and took a moment to steady myself. "I return what was taken," I called out, voice trembling yet resolute. The second it touched the water, there was a deafening silence. The world around us seemed to hold its breath. In an instant, the hum stopped and the lake calmed. The figure flickered, then crumbled into shadows, as if the energy sustaining it had been drained. I couldn't breathe. I waited for something monumental to happen. My stomach knotted painfully. Had I done the right thing? "Did we do it?" Jake whispered in awe. But before I could answer, the calm wasn't just a momentary reprieve. It felt like a deceptive lull before a storm. A large ripple broke the surface of the lake, and something shot up rather violently, crashing over the dock. My heart sank. My instincts screamed for me to run, but I was rooted to the ground as a massive shadow rose from the depths. The water cascaded off a gigantic fish, shimmering in hues of silver and gray, glimmering like scales under the fading light. It was not just a fish, it was a guardian of the lake, furious yet breathtaking. And with it came an overwhelming wave of power, an ancient energy like nothing I had ever experienced. In a flash, images of Charlie and countless others who had vanished danced before my eyes, lingering in a swirling pool of emotions, longing, regret, and an itch of satisfaction layered with dread. Then, just like that, it was gone, sinking back into the depths, the water settling once more into an eerie peace. I stumbled back, heart hammering, adrenaline coursing through my veins. It was over. Or was it? The lake remained a mystery, promises unkept floating along its surface. I turned to Jake, searching his face for answers that I didn't have. "Did we just witness something real?" he asked, his voice small as he began to realize the weight of what had happened. "I don't know," I admitted softly, "but I think we've only brushed the surface." I glanced one last time at the lake, a trickster that held both secrets and beauties, knowing that I would never truly escape it. As we walked back toward the car, I stole one last glance at the water, wondering about the fate of Charlie, and if the hum would ever fade. Would I feel it again? Driving away, the question lingered in my mind. Was it the lake that called to us, or something deeper within us, yearning to be understood? I let out a shaky breath, feeling the weight of ambiguity settle around us. And just like that, the lake was both behind me and within, an enigma waiting to be unraveled. I moved through life cautiously, always glancing over my shoulder, knowing the shadows of the lake would likely never truly let me go.